What's good, y'all? It's Zylar. So, in the interview with Diem and Ghazi, they go over rarity and they go over punishments for dying in the game. I think both of those are very important points. I will briefly cover them now, but for the most part, this was an excellent patch. It is a quite the banger. I'm surprised they managed to get it out as fast as they did. They've only been back in the office for like a week. I would say 90% of this patch is actually SSS tier. But unfortunately, as things are, nothing is perfect. And there are a few spots that they honestly, in my opinion, quite dropped the ball. Particularly the old debate and issue with rarity and the issue with punishment in the video game as it stands now. They seem very open to changes on these things and looking into them more. Hopefully they will. That's why I will continue to offer even more feedback on this. I feel like with the rarity situation, it was quite a open and shut case. It increases the tier rarity of currency that you find, which was the main issue with increased item quantity in PoE 1, which is why when it was removed, it was overjoyed. Most people were overjoyed. It was widely celebrated. Everyone was happy. No one complained. No one said, "Give us increased item quantity back, please." So the fact that they even showed any resistance to this or were confused as to why it's a problem was a bit concerning, but they seem open into looking into it more, and hopefully we'll arrive at the right decision, the right conclusion on this matter. Punishments, that was a bit frustrating as well. It was weird that more or less they seem to understand that when you die, the punishment is too severe and they want to alleviate that. But with all the axes of punishment that were brought up during this question, they did not seem to be sure on what axes should be lessened. Should it be given more portals? Should you not lose any XP? Should you be able to reattempt the map with all the mods? They couldn't really nail down what they want. I know Jonathan said that he would rather be able to do all the map with the mods, but that leads into things with exploiting, which is understandable. It's a problem. I know how you perfectly address that. I personally am in the camp that if you're not going to go down to multiple portals, at least don't take the XP away. And I would say, especially with the amount of XP players are currently getting. Players who are playing hardcore, which means they've never died, so they've never lost any XP, and then continue to play the character, are still barely just recently starting to get to 100. The XP is already such a high bar that most players will never meet. To take off 10% every time you die, it's just too much. It's too much of a reset on death. It feels awful. It's quite frustrating. And perhaps let players, if they die in a map, all the monsters die in that map. You know, you take everything out. It's a blank map. You lose all the mechanics, but you could still zone in and pick up your loot. Those would be my personal recommendations on those two things. But outside of that, I think I'm primarily just going to do general giving my thoughts on the post-patch review. That's
Game Director on Path of Exile 2.
Hi, John.
Well, back from our break. We've been playing the game a whole lot, and we've been reading a whole lot of feedback as
Hell
well.
yeah.
So it's time to assess and work out what we're going to do next. Now, later this week we'll be releasing PoE 2 0.1.1. This is a patch designed to address the concerns that we can address relatively quickly, without needing to create a new league or a new economy just yet. In this video we'll be going over some of the issues we've identified, and what we're planning on doing about them. It's worth stressing that just because a specific issue isn't on this list doesn't mean that we're not aware of it or that it isn't going to get addressed. It just means that we either can't fix the problem quickly, or we can't do so without the need for a new economy. One of the major areas that needs a lot of attention is the base experience of mapping. We've made a lot of changes here. First, in-game maps have received a balance pass to the number of monsters, number of chests, number of magical rare monsters, number of essences, strongboxes, and precursor artifacts.
Okay, so those are a lot of changes to in-game maps, but to my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, comments below, the only monsters anybody's caring about right now in the in-game are rare monsters. I don't Nobody's specking into getting more magic monsters. Nobody really cares about pack size. The rare chests thing is something you spec out of once you get through early waystone sustain and you get into the end game. Everything other than rare monsters is fairly lackluster in terms of the rewards it's offering currently in the game. Now, maybe that's a bit of confirmation bias in that the only thing you ever really notice you killing is a rare monster. So the only thing you ever notice giving you rewards is rare monsters. That could be the case, but at least in terms of the most giga currency farmers and the most giga currency strats, there's wheels that allow you to put more magic monsters into your maps, and nobody's doing that. Nobody is trying to get more magic monsters in there. It's not really like a strategy anybody is trying to even test, really. So again, unless they're doing something on their end, take white moves and blue mobs more lucrative, more rewarding, more comparable to rares, I adding more of those into everything they just mentioned outside of the rare monster adjustment in maps seems questionable. Precursor tablets is nice though, and yeah, that's about it. That's about it. They also address they're going to talk about strong boxes.
You should generally find maps more rewarding than before.
I hope
Maps
so.
generally specialize in one or more of these elements.
Because that's the main thing. Base maps need to be more rewarding. Right now, I don't care what map I run. All my maps right now are a blank template for me to put as many breaches into that I can, so that I can get really good breach runs with really high item quant and rarity. Nothing else matters. The whole map could be blank. It's all about what map has the best layout for a bunch of breaches to open and close in, and me to kill the monsters in those breaches. There's no other equation there. I'm not thinking about anything else. Nothing else matters. That's it. They're all just blank templates for breach. And that's a problem, especially with what they're about to talk about next. But I'm really excited. I'm planning to do a 0 to hero run once they make these changes and see how this would affect a character starting from nothing with scratch, getting into the end game and trying to, make currency, even though the market's kind of fucked. I digress.
So that will be particularly rewarding it. Now, towers are a thing that's very important for players to run often, but we only had one.
I like this layout. I like this design. Immediate concern, minions. Yeah, I would not want to be here on a minion character. It's quite obvious why.
One of them. We wanted to add more variety here as soon as possible, so we've added 4 more tower maps. Alpine Ridge.
It looks beautiful though.
Sinking Spire.
So does this. Looks decent on minions.
Bluff.
They can attack over terrain. That's a great map.
And Mesa.
You can't just I hope this is the worst looking part of Mesa. This thing with this little stair and this little alcove, this little tiny ridge area here, because that has me a bit worried. I don't like the look of this. But what I will say is it looks beautiful. just like everything else in PoE 2, it looks fucking beautiful. But the Mesa is a historically amazing map. To just drop the name Mesa, it sets a lot of expectation in terms of how good of a map it'll be to run.
We've also redone the existing Lost Towers map to make playing there less boring. We're now also spawning more maps with bosses. The rate was intended to be 1 in 4 maps, but in reality the rate was much lower due to some maps being unable to spawn bosses. We've increased the rate to compensate for this issue so that we can get the actually intended rate. We're also adding a new type of tablet that allows you to add bosses to your maps with its own mod pool. Strongboxes also needed some love. They now spawn monsters faster, have a less annoying fog effect, and have also received changes to the timings and effects of the mods on them.
So Two of those mentions are quality of life. They don't really inherently make them worth doing. But the third thing, which was...
Now,
let me get that
and
again.
have also received changes to the timings and effects of the mods on them.
Timing and the effects. So if they're talking about timing and the effects, like the cascading ice damage and all the damage mods, then that doesn't, I mean, again, that's just quality of life. That's the gameplay feel of doing them. But I personally had an issue with the reward. I don't know of anybody who was getting like a lot of value out of these. They were getting a lot of reward out of these. Forget like how cumbersome they were to do. If they were rewarding or had any rewards that were lucrative associated with them, we would have some information on that, right? We would have feedback like, oh, these are pretty good, but they suck to run. But that's not the feedback we have. We have the feedback that they don't ever fucking drop anything. They feel worthless to do. And and they're also cumbersome. So they're slow. You waste a bunch of time and then nothing happens. That is a multifaceted problem. You can't just speed up the monsters, make the effects less cringe, make the fog clarity less cringe, and then be like, look, now you can do it really quickly. It's like, okay, right now I can really quickly get nothing. I mean, we need to, hopefully more will be addressed than just that, and this is just a loose cover, like a quick little overview of some of the things coming to strong boxes and not like the only changes they're getting.
Now, let's talk about visibility of effects. Many maps had too much clutter, preventing effects on the ground from clutter, causing you to be unable to see and dodge them. We both changed the level of clutter on some maps, and has changed some effects to make sure they were always visible. In addition, elemental explosion effects have had visibility improved. Stick around for longer before they explode, and disappear without exploding if a rare monster dies. Volatile plants are also way easier to see before they explode. Now we've also increased the zoom level on the Atlas, done a pass on various terrain collision issues in many maps. We've also improved the load times of opening the world map and Atlas panel. And we also now show the biome of a map on the hover for it.
That's good.
For other in-game content systems, we're
one of those
focusing
nodes
on
don't
getting
even
all
make
the
sense
rewards in line
otherwise.
with what they should be.
The node where
For
you get
Delirium,
different
we
things
recently
based on the
fixed a bug
biome
which
you're in.
caused Delirium monsters to just not spawn after the starting part. And
And it was still one of the best
simulacrums
mechanics.
dropping by 20% to make it more in line with the rate of
Bro, it
finding
wasn't
the
spawning
expedition
half the
ritual
fucking
bosses.
monsters. It was still one of the most worst things to do.
For
That's
Ritual, we
crazy.
made omens now appear in the ritual tribute window 60%
Oh, wow.
more often. For Expedition, we've improved the rarity
Wait a
from the
minute.
shops
Wait, what?
more often.
Hold up.
With the rate of finding the Expedition and Ritual bosses.
Oh, whoa.
Dropping by 20% to make it more in line with the rate of finding the Expedition and Ritual bosses. Dropping by 20% to make it more in line with the rate of finding the Expedition and Ritual bosses.
More in line with the rate of finding the expedition or ritual bosses? I'm sorry, what? Jonathan. Hey, yo, Johnny Roger. Whoa, buddy. Wait a minute. Wait a second. Am I the unluckiest? Wait a second. Am I the unluckiest Path of Exile 2 player in existence? What the fuck do you mean? Make the Delirium Simulacrum encounter. What the fuck do you mean make the Simulacrum encounter be more... What the fuck do you mean make the Simulacrum splinters drop more often? What the What the fuck do you mean make the Simulacrum encounter more common? Hey, make it more in line with the Ritual and Expedition one. What are you talking about? This one's like already one of the most common. Am I crazy? I mean, it's not the most common.
For Ritual, we've made Omens now appear in the Ritual Tribute window 60% more.
Hold up. Let me get that again.
Make it more in line with the rate of finding the Expedition and Ritual bosses. More in line with the rate of finding the Expedition and Ritual bosses.
More in line with the rate of finding the Expedition or Ritual bosses. What the fuck are you talking about? Johnny. I did this content for 2 weeks straight at the league start. I did nothing but Ritual and Expedition. I actually inadvertently was getting breach points just from occasionally doing it while trying to spam this to access Ritual. I have seen 0 audiences with the King. I refuse to buy it. I absolutely refuse to buy. Almost out of stubbornness at this point. Like, maybe I'm just the unluckiest player and people are finding them no problem. Maybe somebody on this planet is doing all 4 of these mechanics at an equal rate, and their Ritual is ahead of Simulacrum or any of these other 2. But I would wager that no matter what the fuck you're doing, Ritual will always be the slowest to progress. Simulacrum, if I had to say, Breach is the fastest, Expedition's number 2, Sim is 3, and this is obviously 4. I just don't understand what he means. How is this? Was I doing something wrong? Ritual is way less common than everything else. So to get Simulacrum surrenders to drop more often, so you can have it be on par with actually accessing the boss from it, like you are with Ritual and Expedition. Now, Expedition makes sense. I think Expedition is perfect. I think Breach is too common. And I think Sim, honestly, they're not going to be equal rate. So Sim, I guess they want it to be more common. Sure, that checks out with me. Sure, makes sense. But then what the fuck is going on here? I honestly think that they're on a different client internally, because they alluded to this discussing bleeds later in the interview with Diem and Gazi, where they said on their end, you can bleed a mob that has energy shield. But I've watched a lot of Quinn69 stream. He cannot apply a bleed with any damage if that mob still has an energy shield. So something's wrong. They are playing a different version of the game or something. Like, something is wrong, because they seem baffled that you couldn't do that with bleeds, when that's just like a matter of fact. And again, on their end, they must have a client where they get Ritual audiences with the King just fine at a reasonable rate. Yet here I am. I've probably done 20 expeditions. I could have done 20 expedition bosses. I've just sold off most of my logbooks, but within doing 6 or 7, or maybe within doing 10 of them, I had gotten all my points. Simulacrum, I've sold off at least 5 of them, and I failed 1. So, and I still have 3 out of 4 of the points, or 6 out of 8, whatever. And yeah, Breach has been done for weeks. So I don't follow on getting it up to these 2, because these 2 aren't even remotely comparable. Very curious statement by them, but you know what? It is what it is.
For Ritual, we've made Omens now appear in the Ritual Tribute window 60% more often.
Giga W change. I mean, hopefully, going back to my crafting video, I think the crafting in the game actually won't be as ass as it currently feels if we could just simply access the meta crafting options in the game at a somewhat reasonable rate. I'm not asking for them to be free. I'm just saying that a roll, keep all suffixes omen should be probably about a divine or 2 and not 16. Only suffixes will get changed, keep all prefixes in PoE 1 is about a divine or 2 divine metacraft. So ideally, you'd be keeping it the same here. But yeah, at the moment they're like 16 divines. So yeah, it's problematic. 60% more common will hopefully alleviate this. We shall see.
takes too long, and that when you do finally get there, you only get one attempt and don't get a chance to learn the boss. In order to address these concerns, we're making the following changes. First, we're making the Citadel spawn closer to the center of the Atlas, and we've also added an effect so you can see them in the fog of war from further away. This makes them much easier to find. To address the problem of only having one attempt, on the Arbiter of Ash you will now get up to 6 respawn attempts. Respawns can only be triggered by the person who put in the keys, and everyone on your party will be respawned at the same time. Leaving the map still forfeits your attempt, so you'll still need to fight the boss with the build you walked into the map with. Higher difficulties of the boss will lower the number of respawn attempts you get, but you should know the mechanics of the fight by then, right? Now, we'll also be adding respawns to other Pinnacle content as well over time.
Yeah, and
Another
that
thing that players have noticed.
again in the interview, that's just a technical limitation. They don't know how to implement it without it being exploitable, so they're just implementing it on who it is the easiest to do so initially. They will be coming to the King of the Mists, Olroth, Zesht, and whatever the fuck Kostis and Omniphobia are in Simulacrum.
Noticed is that there are less keys from Faradin Citadels on the market, and thought that it was because the Citadel spawns less often. It turns out though that this is just because the boss kills players more often than the others. We've made a few changes to that boss to bring it in line with the other boss.
Yeah, did they say that? Again, maybe like the King of the Mist thing, I'm just the unluckiest player on the server. But I have seen in maybe 9-10 Citadels up to this point. 4 were iron, at least 3 were stone, 1 was copper. So I've seen, I think 5 were iron. I've seen 1 copper Citadel and 2 to 3 stone, 4 to 5 iron, give or take 1 or 2. So yeah, even DM reiterated this, that he has seen a lot of iron and stone Citadels, but he's seen like maybe 1, if not any, copper. So again, maybe they're on some different build internally where they're seeing copper Citadels at an even rate as everything else when they spawn them. I have to take their word for it. But yeah, also this boss is generally harder than the others.
A lot of people have reported that many of our unique items are feeling underwhelming.
Bro, these unique item changes.
Uniques are often designed to be build enabled at high levels, even if they're low level.
They look a
we
little bit
realize that
suspect.
we do need to
I'm
make
just
sure
gonna
that more
keep.
uniques
I'm
feel
just gonna
powerful when you
be real.
first get them at low levels too.
Again, it's like one of those things.
A lot.
It's one of those things I logically agree with. Yes, make the item. Yes, this is a good idea. This needs to happen. Good. These changes, they're a little bit they're a little bit questionable at best. Now some of them are cracked. Like you look at so explain this to me, right? Look at Frost Breath Slim Mace. That is just way fucking better. It just became way fucking better. Like this item here to here, crazy. What's going on here? Why does this item need to get nerfed so hard? I don't. I'm confused. Like why? Well, I don't know. Maybe it's really common. It's like a really common unique you're gonna always get, so they don't want it to be like so powerful. Whereas Frost Breath is maybe a tier rarer, so it's okay for it to be stronger. I'm not sure, but I don't think this item needed to get this reduced attack speed. I'm gonna be real, and it has me a bit worried about some of the other examples, not examples, but other uniques that will fall into this category that are going to get updated. As I'm sure there's more than just these. But we'll have to wait till we see the patch notes. It's a good idea. I agree with the logic. I agree with the premise. The execution seems a little bit hit or miss just based off these examples.
Uniques. These changes should make finding uniques at lower levels a lot more fun, and make subsequent character playthroughs more fun too, when you have some great uniques to use. We're also changing a few other things to make finding rares better at higher levels too. First, we're changing mod weightings a bit to make sure that there are less bad mods. Another fix is making high tier items no longer cull the highest tier modifier of a given mod type. This bug caused bows and crossbows to not spawn with attack speed at tier 5 rarity.
That's a bit unfortunate. You still want it to cull things like tier 5 accuracy, for example, or tier 5 light radius, I should say, when you get a tier 6 rare. But if it's causing people to lose, I thought about this myself. I was like, wait, isn't +3 minion skill gems like a tier 3 roll? I would still like to be able to get that even on a tier 4 rare. The fact that it gets culled from the pool is a little less than ideal, especially if the weightings are such that +5 is super rare, like to actually hit, which means basically culling 4 through 1 instead of potentially hitting really high tiers of spirit and then hitting a +3 or a +4 on your minion scepter. You're basically praying to fucking God that it hits.
Another change we're making is to make it so that socketables such as runes can now be overwritten with another socketable.
Thank God, boys.
As we
Holy
continue
shit.
to play, we still find many balance anomalies with specific monsters or bosses that can be nasty if you encounter them. This patch contains a pass adjusting a large number of those monsters and bosses. We'll save the full list for the patch notes, but there are significant
Anybody else
number of
notice that
changes
you're
here
playing
that
Ultimate
should address
music in the
many cases
background
where
when they start
monsters or
talking about
bosses felt
monster
too hard
balance?
in certain circumstances.
No, just me.
Here are a few examples to get a taste of what kind of changes you can expect.
No, anyone?
The Silverfist Commander roll now does a lot less damage.
I love how right here, they talk about the
Link
roll,
bearers
but not the
detonate
slam. They're like, nah, the slam, that shit, you're still fucking out of there, boys. But the roll, yeah, that's a bit egregious, I suppose.
The PC users can. For 0.1.1, we'll be enabling the same system that PoE 1.
What's so fucked for console players, but thank God they're fixing it, is it's not even just about quality of life, being like, there's too much on the screen, I can barely click, and without like picking up all the loot. Just dropping and the game rendering the text and the art for all of this shit the filter isn't culling is making your game perform worse. So it's like you're getting like fucked on both sides. Like not only am my quality of life is dog shit if I'm trying to like in-game juice my maps on console, but also your game's gonna start running worse because it has to render all this dog shit.
Has, which allows you to
But
subscribe
thankfully
to
there
items on the website.
it's being addressed.
For now, this will be done
You're
on
gonna
the
be
PoE
saved.
1 website.
You will have to
allow
go to
us
the
get this
PoE
feature
1
out as
website
fast
to
as
do it,
possible.
though.
Later on, we'll improve the user experience of this and put it on the Path of Exile 2 website. This patch also contains a bunch of other...
Okay. That was pretty good. Overall, pretty Giga W patch. Not much more to say than that. Happy overall. It was, again, some misses on rarity, some misses on punishment, and it's going to be a while before we see any meta balance to the game, but this was a good patch, and things are going in a good direction, and the rate at which they're addressing things, especially now that the holidays are over, is, I mean, honestly, nothing short of remarkable. So, see you guys in the next one. Peace.